Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We've got so much to get to. I want to talk about the Highland Park shooter. He pled guilty, folks, and there is a lawsuit against the Illinois State Police. I think there's about 29, almost 30, somewhere around there. They are uh, they're complaining. They're the complainants, and they're complaining about the Illinois State Police awarding Robert Cremo III a FOID card despite there being clear and present danger reports. So we're going to get to that story here this morning. There's a criminal trial. There was a criminal trial against the Highland Park shooter just this past Monday, and he pled guilty. And now there's civil cases against the Illinois State Police for giving Cremo that gun owner identification card, the FOID card. Okay, now we've been talking about the FOID card for a couple of days here. Now, I actually read this on BLN News this morning. Did the Bloomington police arrest anybody for that smash and grab at Rogers and Holland in the mall? Remember when individuals were scared, victims were scared, they heard popping noises, they took to social media, they said, stay away from the mall, it sounds like there's shooting going on. And then the Bloomington police, they of course shared this press release and they were like, tisk, 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 shame on those victims who, mistakenly heard gunshots. They weren't gunshots. It was actually a hammer smashing into the Rogers and Holland glass case. And there was a robbery. Although they called it a burglary, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't think anybody's been arrested for that, by the way. But this week we've been talking about the Bloomington police and this FOID card situation with this individual, Christopher Simmons, who killed 3 people and then shot himself. There was a vigil. The Bloomington City Council, they, passed off talks, capital project talks, which included, talks about the water infrastructure. And they said, hey, we all want to go to the vigil. We're going to, kind of table the talks about the water and about the water infrastructure for right now. And we're all going to attend the vigil. Like I said, very, very sad, very tragic. Definitely not the time for Bloomington City Council members to table that conversation. Obviously, you guys are tasting the water. I hear that it's a little bit better. So we've been talking about Christopher Simmons, how he had a FOID card, had his FOID card revoked, but still managed to keep the gun that he used in the crime that he had purchased in 2021 before his FOID card was revoked. So there's a process after your FOID card is revoked. What happens to the guns that you're in legal possession of? You have to submit a firearms disposition form. ISP, they confirmed that they didn't receive one of those and that they notified local law enforcement. Nobody, and the guy, I believe, was on probation, 18 months conditional release. Simmons was supposed to have a court date actually this month to get off probation, off this conditional discharge. He was sentenced to that for 18 months, this conditional discharge. After he had a misdemeanor gun charge, okay, and he was sentenced in 2023. So, probation officers, they don't need permission, by the way, from a court, whereas local law enforcement, they need to obtain a court order and seize the guns that are in his possession. If he doesn't turn in a firearm disposition form, they can do that. I don't believe, did. They never responded to me. But there's a pattern here. We're starting to see, with Robert Cremo, with Christopher Simmons, these, nut jobs that kind of leak through the crack, fall through the cracks here. And the ISP, whether it be FOID revocation, they didn't follow through on that, whether it be awarding the bad people the FOID cards when they shouldn't, when there's clear reports and he's a clear and present danger reports, when those are on file, and they awarded him the FOID card anyway. So what the hell is the point of the FOID card, really? And what the hell is the point of all this gun control? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's for Democrat politicians to continue to get money into their campaign coffers, and it's for them to get out there and say that they're doing something when they're doing absolutely nothing. In fact, I would argue that they're making it worse. because the ISP awarded this guy a FOIA card. So I'm gonna hit some highlights from the presidential address. I also want to talk about Terry Renner. Terry Renner, former Bloomington mayor. He's a total clown. Posted something about, how it's horrifying that our so-called president spoke to Zelenskyy, in the Oval Office in the way that he did, and that Ronald Reagan would be rolling over in his grave, turning over in his grave, to know that Republicans have become the pro-Russia party. Give me a break. This is insane. So Terry Renner, he's IWU, I believe he's a professor there. And we've been talking about the water for the last couple of weeks now. Blame Terry Renner, blame Mboka Mwambwe, blame Cody Hendricks, blame the people who have been there for the last 30 years, folks, because we did a regional study, try to figure out how to get off lake source water. I don't know many municipalities that are on lake source water. It's ineffective. Crystal Abel, she's out there. She's a McLean County board member, and she's like, well, how are we going to address climate change? This is why the water is so bad, because the water levels are so low with the lake. Are we going to ask Dan Brady what he thinks about climate change? Folks, climate change, there's a way, a more sustainable way to get you your water. It's the wells, digging the wells. They studied it years ago, decades ago, and they never did anything with it. Terry Renner never did anything with it. They didn't switch it over from the lake source water to the wells. And they studied this. And Steve Stockton, he was a Democrat mayor in the early 2000s. He is responsible, and everybody thereafter him. Okay, don't let Mboka get away with it. Don't let Mayor Terry Renner get away with it. There was something called a PAC system that was taken offline. So the PAC system, it is treating your water. They use carbon to treat it. I'm not a water treatment specialist, so I don't know the science behind how that works. All I know is that it works. Okay, so the PAC system, they use the carbon, and then they attack the algae blooms and the microorganisms in the water, lake source waters. They have to treat that water for algae, and you use the carbon. In the early 2000s, they took that offline, the PAC system offline, because they wanted to reduce costs. Cody Hendricks is running for Bloomington mayor, folks, and all he talks about, every single campaign video I've ever seen, all he talks about is the downtown Bloomington streetscape. So that tells you where his priorities are. Okay, I think it's genius that Dan Burney is running on the water. We need basic infrastructure. I don't know why the PAC system was never returned, never put back online. And like I said, they did some temporary fixes, and I think that it looks clear. And I think that's because the 6 filtration systems that they put online, the 6 additional filters that they put out there. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we know how to fix this. We've known how to fix this for 20 years, is to get off the lake source water. It's not sustainable. Groundwater, the wells, it has its own kind of natural filtration where it passes through rocks and things like that. And I don't know what's so hard about this. And you need to be informed, because you're voting for these people come April 1st. Early voting is open right now, and you're voting for all of these people. You need to be aware of who's on your ballot and who's contributed to this problem for years. All right, let's get to the presidential address. There's a few clips I want to get to. Donald Trump is absolutely hilarious. Take a listen to that.
With no end in sight, the United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense, with no security, with no anything. Do you want to keep it going for another 5 years? Yeah, you would say Pocahontas says yes. $2,000 people.
She's fuming. Elizabeth Warren was fuming. You can't see the video. You can if you want to go on to Rumble or YouTube, but she is fuming. You can just see it in her eyes, how peeved off she is. Donald Trump is absolutely hilarious. I want to play another one. This was another mic drop moment during the presidential address. I absolutely loved it. He talks about the media and the Democrats constantly saying that we needed new legislation to address the border, to get the border under control. Record low border crossings since Donald Trump this last month, since Donald Trump took office, record low. Nobody's coming over anymore. The migration crisis is over. The illegal immigrant crisis is over. And we didn't need to pass that dumb bill that was actually a poison pill, okay? They slipped something in there where, they were basically making it legal for, I forget the numbers, like the threshold number, but it was thousands of illegal immigrants. It was like, okay, we'll allow, I'm throwing a number out there, like 5,000 illegal immigrants to just come over. They don't have to go through a legal port of entry, and they'll just be given temporary status, and there's no need for a background check or anything like that. They don't have to go through any of that, and we're going to put that threshold in there. Hey, 5,000 illegals can come through, and they're given the temporary legal status, so therefore they won't be illegal anymore. So the Republicans weren't on board with that, obviously, because that's basically legalizing what they were doing. Okay, which was allowing illegal immigrants, people who were coming through an illegal port of entry, to stay in the country. And they were just legalizing it with this bill, and that's why the Republicans were so against that. I want to take a listen to this clip. Donald Trump talks about how you didn't need any of that legislation, huh?
The media and our friends in the Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation. We must have legislation to secure the border. But it turned out that all we really needed was a new president.
All we really needed was a new president. So I watched a little bit of the presidential address last night. Those were a couple of mic drop moments. And yeah, the Democrat lawmakers were not very happy. A lot of them were wearing these resist shirts, and they were walking out. This just goes to show you that they have no interest in bipartisanship. They have no interest working with the Republicans at all. They were the ones who were protesting. Just get over yourselves. Elizabeth Warren, just get over yourself. She was definitely fuming. Yes, she was clapping and she chuckled a little, but you could see in her eyes and her face, she just started really just clapping really hard, and she was mad. She was fuming because he called her Pocahontas. He was poking fun at her. There's not a spirit of bipartisanship still. And Donald Trump, when he first got into office, he has done so much to try to reach across the aisle here, and people don't give him enough credit for that. The whole IVF thing, I really don't think Donald Trump was, one way or another on that. People on the left and moderates, they definitely wanted IVF, and they've wanted to, actually enshrine it. Tammy Duckworth, we talked about this. She wanted to make it a right, which means that health insurance companies would be forced to pay for IVF, which is just a slippery slope. You don't want to make anything a right. Healthcare is not a right. And, what's next? Are we going to make, boob jobs a right? Are we going to make, nose jobs are right, your cosmetic surgeries are right? No. And you can't expect people to pay for that kind of stuff, because there's some people who, aren't interested in reproducing, or there's some people who are aged out of reproducing, and you're forcing them to pay via Medicare, Medicaid, for people's IVF. So that was a very just far left bill. Donald Trump met them in the middle, wrote an executive order expanding access to IVF. This was in spirit of bipartisanship. I really do think that he was, trying to work with the people in the middle and on the left, and expand IVF. There's been multiple. I mean, DACA. He's talked with, who was it? I think it was, he talked about how he wanted to sit down with Senator Dick Durbin about DACA and how they could be given amnesty. Okay, he's very bipartisan. These Democrat lawmakers that were there last night, specifically wearing the resist shorts, they have no interest in hearing out the president or hearing out Republicans. And you just don't see that. And I think Donald Trump, he pokes fun at Pocahontas here, Elizabeth Warren, and some of these Democrats because, gosh, they're just so serious. Like, come on, relax a little bit. Why don't you have a little bit of that spirit of bipartisanship? Afford me the same courtesy of being bipartisan and working with me on some of these things. There's some of them walked out wearing the resist shirts. I do want to talk about Terry Renner here coming up in just a little bit. Terry Renner shouldn't be around young people. It's embarrassing that IWU, Illinois Wesleyan University, this is their political science teacher. Number one, you could blame Terry Renner and other Democrat mayors. We've had Democrat mayors in Bloomington. I ChatGPT'd it. It was like for the last 30 years. A lot of them really sucked. I'm sorry if you've lived in Bloomington all your life, but a lot of your mayors really sucked. And your councils obviously sucked because there's no reason why we could have not switched that lake source water to a city well. There's so much money we spend on other things, and I'm pretty sure they're in a deficit. I got to look that up. But they're not spending their money and they're not prioritizing the costs. You need your basic infrastructure, public safety. Addressing the homeless problem is a part of public safety. And now using your tax dollars to house these people, like I said, not a good decision. You should, if they're loitering, if they're soliciting, that's a crime, right? So you need to police that, and we really need to embolden and help our private sector individuals. Abundant Life Church, they've taken on this huge task of trying to address homelessness. But forcing people to pay, like I said, housing, healthcare isn't a right, just like housing isn't a right, because where does it stop? Do we, sure, we provide them a house, but to what extent? Do we give them a hot tub? Are hot tubs all right now with taxpayer dollars? Of course not. So I want to get to Terry Renner. Shouldn't be around kids. And you probably are wondering why every single time your college student comes home for the holidays, you're probably wondering why, wow, I don't even recognize this person. This is a totally different person. I did not raise you to be like this. It's probably because they're hearing from professors like Terry Renner talking about, Donald Trump and President Zelenskyy and how, it's horrifying behavior what the president did with Zelenskyy in the Oval. We're going to talk about it here next on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. My city is lake water. We do have a huge aquifer under that lake that keeps the lake from going dry. I'm curious how your water tastes, Brian. If you could tell me, I run drinking water through charcoal. I'm curious how it would taste. I don't know a ton of municipalities. Like I said, it's. I think you're in Oklahoma, right? But let me know in the comment section if you're still listening. One, how it tastes and where you're based out of if you're in Oklahoma. I just don't know a ton of municipalities that continue to use lake water. It's kind of it's kind of primal. We have the technology, we have the ability to dig wells, and I don't know why we wouldn't be doing that. It's more sustainable. It has natural filtration process, and now you might still have to treat the water, fluoride, whatever. But it's better than the lake water, especially lake water that doesn't have a PAC system. Like I said, that PAC system was taken offline by Democrats in the early 2000s, which is a big, big problem. And it was never put back on by Democrats. So, if you're voting, think about that. Think about the people who you're voting for. You have two guys who have been there forever with the city of Bloomington. Cody Hendricks, semi-new, but also Mboka on base, new. But they've been there, okay? Mboka has been there. How do you not prioritize the PAC system? How do you not realize that that's offline? So they had to get like an emergency application with I'd imagine you put it in with the Illinois Protection Agency, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. they had to get an emergency PAC system and put in an application, and they totally just like admitted in their press release that they took that offline to reduce costs, which was shocking to me. It only tastes bad in the fall. Yeah. Fall lake turnover. Okay. Yeah. So if it only tastes bad in the fall, and like I said, even with the Bloomington water, it's safe to drink, but it just tastes bad, right? The algae, and you're not treating that with the. Now, in Oklahoma, I'd imagine that, your municipality is probably a bit conservative. There's probably not very many Democrat-run cities there. So I'd imagine the PAC system might be offline, but having that aquifer, making sure it never runs dry, that's, a big deal. And it probably contributes to when that lake water goes low, the aquifer, dumps out that water, and it prevents it from getting down to just algae. Okay, that's what we're dealing with here in Bloomington. It's just like practically you're drinking algae. And it's not bad for you. There's no harmful algae, but it only tastes bad in the fall. I would maybe talk with your municipality, ask if they've got a PAC system, something that it's carbon, I think. And I don't know how healthy it is for you. I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm not a scientist. I don't really know how it works. I just know that it works. The PAC system, it's carbon. And then I think that the carbon eats at like these microorganisms in the algae. So yeah, we are back, baby. Woo! Yes, we are totally back. I love Donald Trump, mocking Pocahontas there. We're going to get to the 22 videos of these different senators reading off of a script. Now, I've gone to the State House. I've reported on Illinois senators, Illinois state representatives, and what you need to know about, even at a state level, your representatives, people you elect every single year, people on your ballot, those are the people not making the decisions. Even like, say your Bloomington mayor, say your normal mayor, a lot of the people who are making those decisions are the staffers, okay? The staff, the government staff. And it's really interesting when you go to the State House and they, are going there and they're reading their bills on the floor. You'll see the staffer right there next to the senator, okay, whispering in their ear, telling them what to say. Like, it is the craziest thing to watch because, like, you'll see the staffer's mouth move and then you'll see the politician's mouth move. And, that's not somebody you want. You want somebody who's able to, write their own bills, doesn't rely so much on the lobbyist. At this point, like, if the senators and if the state representatives weren't even there, okay, I think that we wouldn't notice anything different, because most of those, even the Republicans, most of them don't read their own bills, they don't write their own bills, and they rely on the lobbyists to write these bills. And that's not what you want in a representative. They're supposed to be representing you and your interests, and not the lobbyist interests, okay? And definitely not listening to their staff, because we didn't elect their staff, we elected you. I mean, you can have staff to help you craft these bills and, to bounce things off of your staff, wording and, researching other bills to try to help craft this bill, researching the current law to try to craft whatever bill you're working on. There's, definitely room for staff, but having them be the sole drafters of the bills and the authors of these bills, yeah, it's disturbing because they're not elected. And you start to see here in this video, and we're going to get to it, how problematic this has really gotten. Like, they have gotten to a point where they are just shells of human beings. They have no original thoughts, and they just rely so heavily on their staff and their communications directors to say things. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. A little bit later in the show, Democrats, they, I guess, forget how the internet works, because they released all of these videos, 22 of them, from different senators reading the exact same anti-Trump script. This just goes to show you that all of these senators, they are simply mouthpieces. If they weren't there, you wouldn't notice a difference. Okay, because a lot of the people who are crafting this legislation, who are making decisions in Washington, D.C., and who are making decisions in Springfield and Illinois, a lot of them, they don't make their own bills. They have no idea what the bills say. They rely so heavily on their staff and the lobbyists to craft these bills that they've got no original thought in their head. And that's problematic, obviously, because they're not representing you, but rather the interest of the lobbyist. And they're relying so heavily on their staff to say things. Okay, these aren't even really human beings anymore with original thoughts. And yeah, that's problematic. We're going to look at these 22 videos from all of these different senators reading the exact same anti-Trump script. And that just goes to show you they probably don't even have any kind of feelings towards Donald Trump at all, but they got it from their, press, from their communications director, and that's what they're going to say. Well, I really don't think any of these senators really feel one way or another about Donald Trump. They're just there, and they're shells of human beings, and they're just going to repeat the same talking points that their lobbyists and the special interest groups want. Okay, so we're going to get to that, but first I want to talk about Terry Renner. Like I said, he's an IWU professor, a political science teacher. And he doesn't bother with talking about the facts before spouting out his leftist talking points. Okay. Now, I found this on BLN News. I bet he didn't watch the entire press conference with Zelenskyy before, deciding to get on social media and complain about how evil Donald Trump is and how, terrible his behavior was. Zelenskyy decided to renegotiate and deal in front of the cameras. Okay. And he was the one that was out of line, not our president and not our vice president. They were very cordial with Zelenskyy. And then all of a sudden he got combative and started renegotiating right there in front of the American media. And that was totally disrespectful. So Terry, he brings up the Russia hoax, which is like a hoax, and that's been proven for a long, long time. We don't want more dead people. You heard President Donald Trump talking about this. It's like 2,000 people a week. Ukrainians are dying. Yesterday, I talked with great detail about how Zelenskyy is a dictator. There's things that he is not willing to do, which one is hold elections. That's part of the negotiations. Hey, hold an election. Let the people vote for you if they like you. They don't. Okay, so most likely they'd vote for his political opponent, and most likely that political opponent is going to take a much different approach to Russia, where they're not going to be combative with Russia, but rather friends of Russia, and Russia's going to help them out economically. Okay, Ukraine has zero money. They rely on the United States completely. So I don't know when Democrats like Terry Renner became pro-war. Democrats have never been pro-war. Republicans all of a sudden are anti-war. This is such a crazy time we're living in. And I don't know how many more years should we bleed our treasury dry? $400 billion we've sent over to Ukraine. They'd be dead. They'd be gone. Within just a few days. Zelenskyy admitted it in the full press conference. Yeah, thank you. We'd be gone without, all of this money. But he's acting like a spoiled little brat, and he thinks that he's entitled to the American taxpayer dollar. So, like I said, your kids might be coming home from college, and they might, be a totally different person. It's because they have professors like Terry Renner, who used to be the former Bloomington mayor. Okay, used to be the mayor. So Terry Renner says this: today's horrifying behavior, and he's talking about the Oval Office interview or presser. Today's horrifying behavior of our so-called president. Shame on any self-described Republicans who failed to stand up for human decency and democracy. Look, Trump is standing for democracy with these negotiations. He wants Zelenskyy to hold an election. You know who's anti-democracy? Zelenskyy. He doesn't want to hold an election. He doesn't want the people to vote for him. Why? Because he's a fascist dictator who has a gripe with a Russian dictator, the Russia dictator, Putin, who is also a dictator, by the way. But here's the danger about Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy is a dictator without any money. Okay. And a lot of the Ukrainians see that, and they're like, hell, if we're going to be under a dictator, we might as well be under Putin, because he's going to at least ensure that we're have stability. Okay, and he's not going to throw us into vans to fight a war that we will never win, which is exactly what's happening in Ukraine right now. So he goes on in this post. He says, "Shame on self-described Republicans who failed to stand up for human decency and democracy by calling out the actions and the dangerous lies of Trump and Vance in their meeting with the Ukrainian president today. Ronald Reagan would be turning over in his grave to know Republicans have become the pro-Russia party and that most have embraced the constant stream of lies because they have no backbone or basic morality, even some who claim to be Christians." Yeah, I mean, claim to be Christians. I don't know about you, but throwing people into the back of a van to go fight a war that they're never going to win, that's not very moral, okay? Zelenskyy is not a moral human being. He is a dictator, much like the Russian dictator, Vladimir Putin. Anyway, so even those who brainwash themselves with Fox Entertainment must realize the lies and the horror here. By the way, that's what Fox claimed they were, entertainment, not news, in their slander libel suit, and they paid $1 billion to damages to Dominion voting systems. They admitted they knew there was no evidence of fraud in 2020 election and Donald Trump was lying. But they were just in the business of entertaining. Okay, so he goes after Fox News. A lot of Republicans don't even really watch Fox News anymore. You watch alternative media or independent journalists like myself, conservative cat. But no, even if you're watching Fox News, yes, at least they're willing to admit what they are, which is entertainment. They're, provided advertising dollars. CNN is exactly that as well. MSNBC is exactly that as well. They're entertainment. The difference is that they're not willing to admit it. Number one. Number two, the Dominion voting systems, they're anti-free speech, and they went after Fox News because they talked about fraud and the 2020 election. Because why was Fox talking about fraud in the 2020 election? Because you were talking about fraud in the 2020 election. The Pennsylvania law is changing, the election laws. What was her name? Ruby Freeman. She was running the tabulator multiple times, this ballot through the tabulator multiple times. You saw that on security cam footage. Okay, so there were definitely question marks about the 2020 election. There still is. The fact that Joe Biden got all these votes and then all of a sudden those votes disappeared in 2024. Like, where'd all those votes go? In 2020, they came out and they voted for him. But in 2024, nobody came out to vote for him. 20 million, or what was it? 20 million people just didn't vote. Okay, this in 2024, whereas they voted in, or maybe they all died. Okay, 20 million people died in the United States within a period of 4 years. I don't think so. So yeah, that's the type of guy who's educating your children or educating the college students, our young adults at Illinois Wesleyan University. And when they come home and they're a totally different person, that's probably why, because they're being indoctrinated in these universities. So let's get to. There's so much I want to get to. I want to get to this liberal woman. She actually cuts her hair, puts on a bunch of makeup, and transforms herself into Zelenskyy in this really bizarre makeup tutorial. Yes, you heard me right. That she turned herself into Zelenskyy. There's a lot of weird things liberals are doing in the name of Ukraine and Zelenskyy, and they're much like how Fauci was embroidered on a pillow during the pandemic. They're doing the same thing with Zelenskyy, and he's not a nice guy. He's I've seen pornographic videos of him dancing. He's not what you would call a moral fella. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Yeah, Zelenskyy, I mean, there's several videos out there of Zelenskyy, music videos where he does really weird things, wearing tight leather, BDSM gear, and BDSM gear. And there's also videos of him, that infamous piano video of Zelenskyy. Look it up. I'm not going to play it for you. That's not that type of show. Okay, so Zelenskyy is not a moral person, and to uplift him as if he's some sort of god is very bizarre. They did the same thing with Tony Fauci during the pandemic. So we're going to talk about this liberal woman who turns herself quite literally into Zelenskyy, but I also want to talk about AOC. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Smash that like button. We'll be right back. And subscribe to the channel. Why don't you? Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. We are going to get to AOC because AOC is now blaming, and now I don't know if she's a pathological liar, just painfully naive. I don't know. Could be both. Both could be true. But she is blaming Donald Trump. And blaming Republicans for the open border and for the immigration crisis. During Donald Trump's first term, he created one of the most secure borders in American history. We had record low border crossings last month. Since he's been in office, all Sleepy Joe had to do when he became president in 2020, all he had to do was not slash those policies that kept our border secure, the most secure border in American history. All he had to do was leave it all alone. Okay. Instead, he wanted to slash those policies, get rid of those policies that made it the most secure border in American history. He got rid of those and he created the worst border crisis we've ever seen. So the sleeping potato, all he had to do was leave the border alone when he got into office. He did the exact opposite, according to Tom Homan. Biden was the first president in American history to intentionally unsecure the border. Okay, so Trump said many, many times, all he had to do was leave it alone. All he had to do was keep the Trump policies there, and then the border would have been just fine. But he didn't do that. In fact, he created an app, the one PP app or whatever, one CB app. I don't know what it was called. But it made it possible for foreign nationals to bypass our federal immigration laws, illegally enter through an illegal port of entry, not through a legal port of entry, not try to gain asylum, not try to get a green card, work visa, student visa, whatever it is. And Joe Biden went as far as to ship illegal immigrants from all over on your dime, on your taxpayer dimes, shipping them in from Spain, Romania, Venezuela. Okay. And they proceeded to, of course, terrorize Americans, sometimes to the point of death in Laken Riley's case. Even you had here in Springfield, Emma Schaefer. He was here illegally. He should have been deported. He wasn't, and he managed to kill Emma Schaefer, allegedly. Still on the run. I don't even think that he's been convicted of it. I'm pretty sure he fled to Mexico. So this had nothing to do with Donald Trump. The migration, the illegal immigrant crisis had nothing to do with Trump. And AOC, she got on, no surprise, NPR, to blame Donald Trump for the illegal immigration. Take a listen. Here we go.
To what extent is immigration as an issue part of your problem with working class voters?
I mean, I guess my question would be what does the word problem mean?
People voting for the other side and not for you.
Yeah.
Feeling that Democrats are not serious about the issue in ways that concern them.
I think that we have a problem on immigration because of the lack of progress that we've had on this issue. And as we know, Republicans weaponized that lack of progress. Of course, there was famously a bipartisan bill last year that Republican majority in the Senate and also in the House were willing to pass. President Biden was willing to work with them on it. And Donald Trump said, do not solve this problem. As long as it is broken, then it will be politically beneficial for us. And so it is a problem not just for Democrats, it's a problem for the entire country that Republicans do not want to solve any sort of issue with immigration. They are completely uninterested in addressing undocumented people, in addressing a path to citizenship.
Well, they do want to address undocumented people by removing them. I mean, that's what the president is attempting now.
Even then, you see what Republicans did with the Laken Riley Act recently in their passage with it. In that they authorized the complete gutting of due process. So now you can take a DACA recipient, a dreamer, just accuse them of a crime.
And deport them.
And however, they also understand that they don't even have the infrastructure to do that. So they're actually creating it's not even about creating a deportation pipeline. They are creating a private prison camp pipeline. So they're still creating pipelines to just increase this problem here in the United States.
What?
Oh gosh, my head hurts from listening to that. There's so many troubling things in that video. Firstly, what's the point of asking the definition of the problem? Okay, did she need more time to come up with her nonsense? Okay, so in the beginning here, she goes, well, what do you mean by problem? And he's like, well, a problem for you, and that people don't vote for you because you're soft on immigration. And she says that it's due to a lack of progress. And what she means by that, that's Marxist speak for it's a problem because Republicans refuse to not open up the borders. And we want legal ports of entry. We want background checks. We want to make sure we know who's coming into the country. And they're upset that we want that there are federal immigration laws and that Republicans want those federal immigration laws on the books. And because we want that, they're saying that that's a lack of progress. Okay, that's what the Marxists like AOC think. We're going to be right back. I'm going to unpack a little bit more from this interview, and then we are going to be switching on over. I want to talk. I want to talk about this woman on TikTok. She does like a makeup tutorial and she creates herself into Zelenskyy, like actually cuts her hair, makes herself look exactly like Zelenskyy on TikTok. And, you know, I'm getting very 2020 vibes from this, where people start putting Fauci's face on pillows, where they're making Zelenskyy into a god. And he's far from that. He's not a very nice man. He refuses to hold elections. He's a dictator. He clubs people over the head, throws them in a van to go fight a war that they will inevitably die in. So he's not a very nice man, but you've got the leftists uplifting him as if he's a god. Same thing they did with Tony Fauci during the 2020 pandemic. I'll be right back. Oh, boy. So there's so much to unpack here with this AOC clip. We're going to watch it hopefully one more time because there's just so much to unpack there. Marxist speak here for this lack of progress she's talking about. That's Marxist speak for she's upset that the Republicans aren't pro open border, okay, or aren't for getting rid of the federal immigration laws. Okay, so when she claims Republicans, this is what she says, Republicans weaponized that lack of progress. She means that they spoke out against the border crisis, okay? So that's what she means by they're weaponizing this lack of progress. No, we spoke out against what we currently have, okay? If you don't like it, change it. And they haven't been able to change it because it's federal immigration law and most people want it, okay? And because we spoke out against that, because of all of these violations to our federal immigration laws, and they refused to pass this bipartisan bill, which means it was painfully partisan, actually, but this bipartisan bill we talked about earlier, where it would enshrine illegal immigration. So it's that progress she's talking about where we eliminate the federal immigration law that, you know, says, hey, you have to go through a legal port of entry and we have to process you. Okay, and we have to know who you are before you come into the country. She wants to get rid of that. She just wants somebody to come through an illegal port of entry on a jet ski, right, and hop the border, swim over the border, swim across the border. She wants those individuals to be able to become citizens, okay? And that's what the bill would have done. It would have enshrined it. It was like a threshold. There was a number, like 5,000 immigrants. I'm throwing out a number. It was thousands. It was in the thousands. Every year we would allow for X amount of illegal immigrants to just come over an illegal port of entry or come through an illegal port of entry, and they'd gain temporary status. And that is just eliminating our federal immigration laws. So that's not really partisan or bipartisan. That is completely partisan in the sense that only the far left wants that. Okay, nobody wants to end federal immigration law. Not even Democrats in some cases. This is like a Marxist playbook. Okay, they take this right out of the Marxist playbook. They create the problem. Okay, Joe Biden created this problem. He slashed all of the border policies that Trump had that created the most secure border in American history. They created the problem of the immigration crisis, okay, where people were just hopping over the border. Then they came up with the solution. Hey, let's just legalize that. Let's just say that that's okay. And we don't have to process them through the legal port of entry and through the legal process. Let's just legalize this. And they created the solution. The solution makes everyone worse off, okay? And nobody is actually for that solution. That's the problem here with the Marxist playbook. So Trump never said, do not solve this problem. So in this clip, let me replay a little bit of
To
it.
what extent is immigration as
I
an
want to
issue?
play it from here.
As long as it is broken, then it will be politically beneficial for us. And so it is a problem not just for Democrats, it's a problem for the entire country that Republicans do not want to solve any sort of issue with immigration. They are completely uninterested in addressing undocumented people, in addressing a path to citizenship.
Well, they do want to address undocumented people by removing them. I mean, that's what the president is attempting now.
Even then, you see what Republicans did with the Laken Riley Act recently in their passage with it.
That's so bogus. The Laken Riley Act, one, it doesn't do that. You have to be convicted of crime, by the way, not just accused of the crime. It doesn't get rid of due process. And she brings up these dreamers, these DACA recipients. I can point to a DREAMA DACA recipient who killed Emma Schaefer, by the way. Yes, we should be deporting people like that. And he avoided deportation under Joe Biden's administration. And he managed to kill Emma Schaefer because he avoided that deportation. That's Gabriel Calixto. Okay, look him up. So the Laken Riley Act is going to protect people like Laken Riley, people like Emma Schaefer, people who are convicted of crimes. They're scheduled for deportation, and then somehow they slip through the cracks of Homeland Security. Here we go. Let's take a listen. Or let's come back, and I'm going to unpack this a little bit more. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Yes, we talked about AOC. AOC was on with NPR, and she says that, this is a problem because Republicans are lacking progress. And what that means, it's Marxist speak, for the problem is that Republicans refuse to open up the borders. Democrats, what they truly want is to get rid of the federal immigration laws, which is exactly what that bipartisan bill that they always talk about did. It had like a number, a threshold. I'm just going to throw out a number. I think it was like 5,000 or something like that every single year, where they just kind of give them a pass and they can enter through an illegal port of entry, and we don't have to do background checks on them. We don't have to, process them. The illegal immigrants, and they'll be given automatic temporary status. Okay, that's what they want, and the Republicans refuse to do that. And most sane Democrats would refuse to do that because that's going against federal immigration law. We need to have a process set up where we know who's coming into the country. You wouldn't invite people over to your house. Like if strangers just started coming into your house, right? You have a process. You invite people over. You know who's coming over to your house for dinner. You know what kind of person they are. Okay, you wouldn't just allow strangers into your house. We call that burglary. Okay, so Trump, she claims Republicans don't want to solve this problem. Trump is the most outspoken person on this issue. Republicans are the most outspoken people on this issue. Donald Trump ran his first campaign on building a wall. Okay, so he does want to solve the problem. He wants the federal immigration laws, and he wants that process to exist, where we vet the immigrants coming in. And I always say, I'm not anti immigrant. I'm pro legal immigration. Okay, that's what I'm pro legal immigration. And that's what Donald Trump ran on. He ran on building the wall and making sure we process our immigrants. So the fact that people believe her crap prove that many of these Democrats would never be in power if not for the most naive voter base. Okay, she talks about Laken Riley Act. She says that if you're accused, then you're deported. And that's not true. Gabriel Calixto, Springfield, he killed Emma Schaefer. He was scheduled to be deported. He had a deportation order. Somehow he was able to evade that deportation order and not be deported through Joe Biden's Homeland Security. And he managed to kill Emma Schaefer and allegedly kill Emma Schaefer because he hasn't been caught. From what I understand, he fled, they believe, to go down to Mexico, but he hasn't been caught. And I mean, Gabriel Calixto, he served in the Illinois Department of Corrections. He kidnapped a girl that I spoke to, actually, Katie O'Brien. Poor girl went through hell. And, he got the deportation order, but somehow managed to slip through the cracks of Department of Homeland Security. So she's like, oh, these poor dreamers will be deported. No, the Gabriel Calixtos who are convicted are going to be deported. So I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Let's take a listen to this one more time, a little bit more. She talks about the Laken Riley Act here.
In that they authorize the complete gutting of due process. So now you can take a DACA recipient, a dreamer, just accuse them of a crime
And deport them.
And however, they also understand that they don't even have the infrastructure to do that. So they're actually creating not just it's not even about creating a deportation pipeline. They are creating a private prison camp pipeline. So they're still creating pipelines to just increase this problem here in the United States.
Okay, so here it's so infuriating because the solution to this problem, the illegal immigration problem for her, is a pathway to citizenship for people who just broke our federal immigration laws. She thinks, oh, because they broke our federal immigration laws, they should have a pathway to citizenship, or they should be citizens. No, that's not what gets you citizenship, okay? You have to advocate for yourself by entering through an illegal port of entry and saying why you want to be here, okay? Now, the worst thing she did here was compare the Laken Riley Act to, quote, gutting due process, which doesn't do that. You have to be convicted, by creating a private prison camp pipeline. She says a lot of dumb things, but to blame Biden's border crisis on Republicans and on Trump is just completely foolish, and it's astonishing even for her. Okay, even for AOC. Never underestimate how low these people will go to prove their lack of a point. So when we come back, I want to talk about Zelenskyy. The left has decided to uplift Zelenskyy, much like they did with Tony Fauci during the pandemic, embroidered his face on a pillow. They're doing the same thing with Zelenskyy, which is really weird. And that's how you know, like, somebody's a dictator and somebody is... when you get that kind of response. You've got Zelenskyy, ungrateful, spoiled little brat, entitled to he thinks that he's entitled to over $400 billion of taxpayer funds, of your money. And this is just one of the most bizarre hills that the left has decided to die on. Okay, they've chosen recently the Zelenskyy Hill. And where he's like the best guy ever. I'm gonna pull this up. Hopefully I can find it. I'm gonna take a quick break. But it's Zelenskyy, and he's like borderline pornographic videos. He's in BDSM gear. He's not a nice fella. I don't know about you, but people who do pornographic, type material, I wouldn't say that they're the nicest people. Okay, and the kindest people out there in the world. So yeah, they're uplifting this guy. I'll be right back. Hey, welcome to the Red Kingdom. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can always check out the stream, and you can subscribe to the channel. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about AOC. She says a lot of dumb things, but to blame Joe Biden, or to blame the border crisis, not on Joe Biden, but on Donald Trump and Republicans, it's just so foolish. It's an astonishing lie. It's really bizarre even for her. She talks about the Laken Riley Act and how it's gutting due process. Look, it's people who are convicted of crimes. You're talking about your Gabriel Calixos. He served in the Illinois Department of Corrections. He got it pled down. He was sentenced, I think, to like 7 years or something like that for kidnapping a girl. But he got it pled down, only served like a couple of years, unlawful restraint. Got out of prison, had a deportation order, slipped through the cracks of Joe Biden's Department of Homeland Security, managed to get out, out of immigration custody, out of their custody, Homeland Security custody, and managed to get out and kill, allegedly, Emma Schaefer in Springfield, Illinois. So Laken Riley Act is protecting women and protecting our vulnerable communities from these very dangerous people who break our federal immigration laws. Now, she thinks that the problem and how to fix this problem is by giving citizenship to people solely based on the fact that they broke our federal immigration laws, okay? And they went through an illegal port of entry for a reason, by the way. A lot of people go through the illegal port of entry and they're undocumented for a reason. It's because they know they can't pass the background check, okay? So she's mad that Republicans are against that. That we believe that, hey, you should go through a legal port of entry and you should be processed and vetted before you come into the country. America is our home. You wouldn't allow strangers into your home. It's a crime. It's burglary. Okay, people can't just walk into your home, strangers that you don't invite. That's burglary. That's entering without an invitation. Like, you can't do that. So why do we allow that? And it's because these people don't see America as their home. They don't have any pride in our country. They don't love their home. They don't love America. So we're going to get to a couple of other things here. I want to get to this woman on TikTok. This is really bizarre because I've only seen this one other time where they uplift somebody almost as if he's a god. Okay, Zelenskyy. They did this one other time, the leftists, with Tony Fauci, with Anthony Fauci during the pandemic. Never underestimate what bandwagon the left will jump on. I think it's really weird that they're uplifting this ungrateful, spoiled brat. It's a really bizarre hill that they've chosen recently, the left, but never underestimate what hill they'll choose and what bandwagon they'll jump on, because they can't even really comprehend what they do. Okay, so they did this again. Like they did it with Tony. They're doing it with Zelenskyy. This woman went so far, and you guys can watch it on, the stream. I'm going to play it a little bit here for you on the stream. This woman, she does this really bizarre makeup tutorial. Okay, so she's a liberal woman, and she starts cutting her hair. And it's kind of like not super long, but it's not super short either. So she starts cutting her hair to mimic the haircut that Zelenskyy has. Okay, the masses here are uplifting Zelenskyy and playing. Really, the guy's got too big of an ego already. Okay, and they're turning him into some sort of god. So she creates a makeup tutorial here, and she makes herself look almost exactly like Zelenskyy. It's bizarre. I don't know what the heck this is. And I honestly had to do a double take. I thought it was Zelenskyy at the end. So she does the makeup tutorial and she cuts her hair. She kind of gives her self a buzz cut and a beard, some stubble here. And then she, changes out of her shirt and she's wearing a USMC, which is okay. So this video is so strange. And I don't know. At some point, it's mental illness, right? Putting Fauci's face on a pillow, that's mental illness. So he's getting this really weird response from the left. And, she's got this bizarre way of showing her appreciation for Zelenskyy by turning herself into him. This was really unsettling to watch. Like I said, you can watch it on the stream. James Carville, he is also another leftist with a really bizarre response to what happened in the Oval last week. What was it, the weekend, Friday? James Carville, he's upset about this meeting that Trump, Vance, and Zelenskyy had, and he claimed that the president of the United States has syphilis. Okay, so he thinks that Trump has syphilis because of his argument that he had with Zelenskyy in the Oval. So I'm going to quote from James Carville here. James Carville is like a cross-dressing psycho lunatic, but I'm going to quote from him. He posted this video online, and I'm going to read some of the transcript of this video. He says, "What you saw is madness. I don't mean madness like I'm mad at you, you're mad at me. You didn't say this. I'm talking about madness like King George III kind of madness." Okay, so it could be a combination of him being a fat slob, which of course he is, talking about President Donald Trump. It could be that he can't sleep at night because he's a beached whale body, can't allow circulation. What? Donald Trump isn't even fat. Like, I don't even know what he's really talking about. The guy's like 6'3". He's a big boned. Yeah, sure. But he's not fat. He's not Governor J.B. Pritzker, right? He talks about how he can't sleep at night because he's a beached whale. I don't know. I'm not a sleep specialist or a medical doctor. I don't know. I think we should revisit the possibility of syphilis diagnosis. A lot of people watch this channel. Some of you, many of you are doctors and professionals. And I'm getting in the comments here. And some of you are just well-informed citizens, but you guys think that he has syphilis. I don't think that we can discount the fact that what we saw was mad. Okay, so like mad as in like King George III kind of madness. I'm not going to concede that I'm just asking questions. I'm making an observation that everyone saw. We know that boy ain't right. That's what James Carville says. Guy is completely broken. He's completely lost it. How in the world could you remotely convince people that Donald Trump has syphilis from that conversation? I don't know where you get that from. That's what the type of people we're dealing with. We're dealing with a cross-dresser and these allegations of syphilis, and that's what we're dealing with here. Zelenskyy is not even a good guy. I could play video after video of him in slightly pornographic films. I could play video after video where in Ukraine they're clubbing people over the head, throwing them in vans, and forcing them to fight in an unwinnable war. I could play videos where he talks, is asked about, hey, are you going to hold an election? And he says no. Like anytime a leader says, hey, we shouldn't hold elections, that's dictatorship. Okay, so unfortunately for the Ukrainians, they fled a dictator, Russia, and they tried to break away from Russian control, Soviet Union control, and they broke away from the Soviet Union. This is why Putin is so hell-bent on getting Ukraine back, because he thinks that Ukraine is a part of Russia, which they are. They're all Russian speaking. And they were part of Russia, and they broke off. They wanted their own country, and they just left one dictator for another. And unfortunately, this dictator, I would argue, is even scary. It's very scary to live under a dictator who has no power. So he's scrambling for it. And his back is against the wall because he has no money. He has no power. Nothing's keeping him there except his deranged idea that he is the leader of Ukraine, and he doesn't want to hold any kind of election. So I gotta take a quick break, but I'm gonna get to a few more leftist responses. There's one guy who posted a video of himself crying because there was a journalist who questioned Zelenskyy for his wardrobe choices. I mean, that's not so. Brian Glenn in the Oval, he asked Zelenskyy why he wasn't wearing a suit. Totally valid question. People ask, what's his name? The guy who had a stroke. Why am I blanking on that? The senator, John Fetterman. Sorry. John Fetterman, people ask him why he chooses to wear the Carhartt sweatshirt, right? There's a deliberate, that's a totally valid question. Why are you wearing sweats? Why are you wearing a crew neck and some sweatpants? Here's Zelenskyy in the Oval Office. That's a totally valid question. I really want to know, is it because like you're in war and that's why you're wearing the crew neck? Okay. But this TikTok influencer, he goes by Coach Mox and he hates America and he starts crying, like a grown man starts crying on camera because the reporter had asked the question as to why Zelenskyy wasn't wearing a suit. And this grown man, barely speaking through tears, says that he wants to comfort Zelenskyy right now and apologize to him for America and them asking him this question about why he's not wearing a suit. I don't know. It's very deranged behavior. I'm going to be back. We're going to talk about this. Next thing you know, they're going to be selling Zelenskyy pillows, and I'm not going to be ready for that. So we'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Good morning. So do appreciate you tuning in. I do want to play this for you. I said I could play video after video, showing you that Zelenskyy is not the nicest guy in the world. Okay. So these are slightly pornographic. Get the kids out of the room, okay? Take a look at this. Here we go.
Будьмо гей за волю, за долю, за правду. Будьмо гей.
Okay, so I wanted to share that with you because I'm not lying. Zelenskyy, he was in show business before becoming the president of president of Ukraine. No wonder the left loves him so much. He's prancing around in BDSM gear. So these liberals have posted really bizarre videos uplifting Zelenskyy as if he's some sort of god. The only other time I've seen something like this is the whole Tony Fauci thing. A lot of these videos make me very uncomfortable. The level of cringe. This one influencer, he said that he wish he could comfort Zelenskyy because of that question. Barely fighting through tears. I'll have to find it. It's riddled with cuss words, and I don't like playing that for the radio folks. But I'll try to find it for you guys. This guy, it's riddled with cuss words. He's like screaming about, how the reporter shouldn't have asked him this question, where hey, why are you wearing the suit? Why aren't you wearing a suit? So we're going to get to that. But I also want to talk about the 22 Democrat senators who made this video, and they were reading off of a script. It's an anti-Trump script, and it's the exact, like, word for word. So there's a cut here that you guys are going to really like. It's all 22 videos back to back and like lined up. So you can see that they're using the same script. This is propaganda. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Yes, before we took the break, I was telling you how it's really weird that liberals, they are uplifting Zelenskyy as if he's a god. And this is pretty indicative that he is a dictator. He is a fascist, much like Putin. And I feel bad for the Ukrainian people. They break away from Putin's control only to find themselves in the hands of yet another dictator. And unfortunately, this dictator is very dangerous because he's got his back up against the wall. He has no money and no power. Putin has money and power. Zelenskyy does not. So he's resorting to clubbing people in the head, throwing them in vans, and getting them to fight young men in a war that they will inevitably die in. Okay, 2,000 people, what is it, a week that Donald Trump said during the presidential address last night, are dying over there. How much longer are we going to bleed our treasury to fight this unwinnable war? What he wants is America to go to war and to continue sending money for Ukraine to go to war with Russia. He wants our boots on the ground to fight for Ukraine. They're not a NATO country. We need to pull out of NATO, honestly, and just let the European nations, if they want to fund Zelenskyy, which they won't, because we are the ones who contribute to NATO as well. No other country really contributes to NATO except the United States. If we were to pull out, NATO would just probably dissipate. So if NATO and the European nations, they wanted to help Ukraine, go ahead. They're not even really a part of NATO, Ukraine. But these influencers, these leftists, they're getting on social media and they're crying. Like, this is a grown man who's crying, and he's crying because he says he hates America because of how Zelenskyy was treated during his office visit, or the Oval Office visit. Okay, so barely fighting through these tears. Tears are flowing out of his eyes. His name is Coach Mox. He's a TikTok influencer. And he's crying because I guess this reporter had asked a question of Zelenskyy, which is a totally valid question. Brian Glenn, the reporter, he asked, hey, why aren't you wearing a suit in the Oval Office? What's going on? Why wouldn't you wear a suit? And, I don't think that's a crazy question. It's very odd, bizarre that the leader of a country, president of a country, isn't wearing a suit. So the influencer, he ended the video saying that he wished that he could comfort Zelenskyy. It's very cringy. Like, it's a level of cringe that it just makes me itch. And they did this before with Tony Fauci. They find these characters and they uplift them to a status of, like, almost as a god. Okay. And, that's a pretty indicative sign that Zelenskyy is a dictator. Tony Fauci was a bureaucratic dictator, and he liked locking people down in their homes and taking away their freedoms during COVID-19. So since these liberals have posted their bizarre videos, Zelenskyy said Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer, adding that his team and I his team and I, so Zelenskyy, were ready to work under President Donald Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. So, it turns out all of these videos of leftists crying, putting on makeup, turning themselves into Zelenskyy, which was really weird and unsettling. And none of that really it does anything. Okay, there's going to be negotiations happening. I don't know if Zelensky's going to come to the table. Maybe, we pull out of NATO. NATO tries to help Ukraine. They have approximately maybe 7 or so months left in this war. The European nations try to fund the war against Russia invading Ukraine. I don't know. He should take the deal, okay, because it stops Russia from further invading. He should hold elections. That's what Putin wants. He wants him to hold elections, which, I mean, we shouldn't be having an economic interest, and we will be with this mineral deal if that goes through. We shouldn't be having an economic interest in a country that is led by a fascist, right? So it only makes sense to hold elections. So that's not a big ask of Zelenskyy. It is for him because he doesn't want to lose his control. I want to talk about Democrats now. They don't really stand for anything. I've seen this at a state level as well, and it's very bizarre where staffers and lobbyists, they're the ones who are truly drafting these bills. Your legislators, if they were all gone tomorrow, like if they had just not shown up for work, nothing would really change. Because the lobbyists are the one drafting the bills and they're working with the staff to craft the bills. And the Democrat senators, especially these 22 Democrat senators, the top Democratic senators, these guys don't really have an original thought in their brain. So I want to play this clip. This is really interesting. 22 of these Democrat senators read from the same script. It's an anti-Trump script. And they posted this, and I don't know if they forgot how the internet works, but we compiled this. People on the right have compiled these 22 videos, put them side by side, and it's the exact same script.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
Okay, they're all saying the exact same thing. I know it's mumbled and jumbled, but you can watch on the stream. They're all saying the exact same thing. These people tried to gaslight you. These are the same people who tried to gaslight you into thinking that Kamala Harris was middle class and that she was, authentic and she was just like one of you. These are the same types of people, okay? They have no original thought in their brains, and their staffers gave them some sort of script to read off of, and it's propaganda. That's exactly what this is. They were caught red-handed reading from the same script in these videos meant to oppose President Donald Trump's address to Congress, okay? Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, we've got Dick Durbin here, Tammy Duckworth. They all published footage of their opposition with the same word-for-word clips and this strikingly very similar B-roll as well. So they put B-roll in these videos, and like it all began with the same clip of the president's vowing to bring prices down. Okay, and then they, say an expletive because that's what Democrats do. They say that's not true. Expletive, that's not true, that he's not going to bring prices down. And I just don't understand why they just didn't I understand the script was sent out from their PR people, from the Democrat staffers, and they said, hey, get online and talk about the presidential address and oppose Donald Trump, okay? The least they could have done was pull their own talking points, add a little bit of their own flavor, and they didn't do that. It reminds me of another clip that I'm going to get to, and it's the media. The mainstream media, they will constantly say threat to democracy, and they'll pull some of these same exact phrases. And, it shouldn't shock you that the politicians in the media, they're the ones who repeat the same. It's bizarre that this is only happening with leftist media and politicians, where they just repeat the same narrative. This is propaganda. It's brainwashing. There's another video I want to play. This is of the media now, and you'll see the same phrases over and over across all of these different local news channels. And that just goes to show you that the media is not interested in telling you the truth or providing you original reporting. They're just interested in getting this leftist narrative out there and repeating the same talking points that your Democrat politicians have as well. So we're going to be right back with that video next on Conservative Cat. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk blooming to normal. I wanted to talk about the identical rants here. They had 22 Democrat senators get out there and had rants about, Trump, anti-Trump speech. And it's really bizarre because the only other place that I've kind of seen this behavior is also in the media, where they just regenerate, they don't even... It's not even repurposing the talking points. They just word for word. And take a listen to this video. This is the media. Extremely dangerous for our democracy. Dangerous for our democracy. Donald Trump, right? And this is across so many local news channels. Take a listen to this. This has been a narrative in the making for quite some time and for many, many years. Listen.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
The El Paso, Las Cruces communities, Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
We are concerned about the trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
the sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 All right. So there's only like one other entity, so politicians, but then also the media. I don't think it's a coincidence here that the leftist media and the politicians, they are constantly regurgitating these same talking points. So these nearly identical rants clearly came from the same source. I don't know who. I'd imagine it's a Democrat staffer. They created a script for them to read off of. But they're so these Democrat politicians like Dick Durbin, Tammy Duckworth, they were featured. Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Warren. They're so inauthentic. They're unoriginal. And they're trying to say that, Donald Trump, since day one of Donald Trump's presidency's prices are up, they're not down. Okay. So they say that part, and it's all identical in these 22 videos. They say inflation is getting worse. The price, or cost, as Warren puts it. So in her video, she didn't say the price. She said the cost of groceries, gas, housing, eggs. And then they all said together are getting higher or getting worse. Okay, so these are nearly identical videos. And it's a weird pattern that I'm seeing not only amongst these Democrat politicians, but also in the media. Extremely dangerous for our democracy. They repeat these phrases, and it's straight up propaganda. So Elon Musk caught on to this. Utah Senator Mike Lee caught on to this. And they want to know who wrote this script. So this is Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, and Cory Booker's identical videos, word for word, right before President Donald Trump's presidential speech, presidential address. And there's some highlights there. There were a couple of great things he had said. He actually called Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas in his speech, which I thought was hilarious. But take a listen. This is Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, and Chuck Schumer. They're identical videos that they posted online. Here we
I
go.
win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard. Since day one of Donald Trump's presidency, prices are not down, they're up. Inflation is getting worse, not better. The prices of groceries, gas, housing, eggs, of essentials, it's not getting better, it's getting worse. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has done nothing. Who's eggs to lower prices? Instead, he's pardoned violent criminals who savagely beat police officers.
On January 6th.
He's letting Elon Musk take a chainsaw to vital government programs and then even worse.
Okay, so you can clearly see, I mean, these videos are side by side by side, and they're literally saying the exact same thing. So it's propaganda. They didn't have to read it verbatim. They did. And it's no surprise because Marxists are lazy people. And they didn't change any bit of this script that was sent to them to repeat by somebody in the deep state. I'd imagine it was a staffer or, and the people who are running your government, it's the bureaucracy, same at the state level. I've watched a staffer whisper in the ear of a politician who was on the floor talking about a bill. I've watched a staffer just repeat, like talk, and then the politician would open his mouth and say the exact same things that the staffer was saying. And we all know that these staffers are working with the lobbyists, so really it's the lobbyists who are creating these bills. Your representation is not representation at all. They're shells of human beings. They don't care about any of this. They don't care about the egg prices. They don't care about Social Security. They don't care about Medicaid. They can say that all they want, but really what they're in it for is for the bureaucracy and for the checks to keep coming into their coffers from the lobbyists who actually craft these bills. So this is exactly why they lost. The American people don't buy their crap anymore. Okay, I've got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. You can go ahead, text me 309-451-9299. I got this text, Jeff. He says, I don't know if you're a Star Trek fan, Cat, but this proves my theory that the left is the Borg from Star Trek. The Borg is a great analogy of the progressive left, and you just proved it by those talking points that are all in unison saying the same thing, and that's pretty much what the Borg were. I have never seen Star Trek, so I have no idea what you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, that's the point here, is that they are, I have seen Hunger Games, and these talking points is all propaganda, and the leftist media is a part of it, and the Democrat politicians are a part of it. And it's almost embarrassing that they all did this. I can't believe that they forgot how the internet works, but we can put them side by side and they're repeating the same script, which means they truly don't feel the way that they do, or at least it calls into question their feelings about Donald Trump, because they're reading from a script. It's unoriginal. So they really don't, they don't feel this way, but rather the person who wrote this script feels this way. So I want to talk about the Highland Park shooter, by the way. I didn't get to this yet this morning, but there was a criminal trial against, obviously, the Highland Park shooter, and it was on Monday, and he pled guilty. Robert Crimo III. Now, there is a civil case against the Illinois State Police for giving Crimo a FOID card. Okay, so this still continues, the civil case. According to the Center Square, 7 people died, dozens were injured in the shooting that took place on Independence Day in 2022. Crimo was arrested shortly after and charged with murder and attempted murder. So there were dozens injured. It was a terrible, terrible tragedy. I remember when that happened. A very disturbed individual, Crimo, and was known to the authorities. So we're going to get to that here in just a second. But he pleaded guilty. He faced 21 counts of first-degree murder, as well as 48 counts of attempted murder, and he will be sentenced on April 23rd of this year, and most likely he's going to spend the rest of his life behind bars, folks. Robert Crimo. The Highland Park shooting was the reason why there was something called the Protect Communities Act. That is what bans 170 semi-automatic weapons, firearms, and magazines. This is the so-called assault weapons ban. That's what the shooting led to. But really, you look at this, what really led to this was that there was a FOID card issued to Robert Crimo. Okay, so Crimo had purchased firearms legally in 2020, and he was issued a FOID card by the Illinois State Police in 2019. His father, Robert Crimo Jr., former mayoral candidate, was charged in connection with how his son obtained a FOID card. Okay, because he wasn't 21. Okay, someone under the age of 21 under the age of 21 must get their parent and guardian to sponsor their applications. So now the ISP faces a lawsuit, and they gave him a FOID card despite there being many reports. The local police there in Lake County, the Lake County Sheriff's Deputy Chief Chris Cavelli, he disclosed that the local police responded to Crimo's home several times. Domestic violence call 2019. They didn't make any kind of arrest, but they did say clear and present danger. Okay, reports. Now, what the hell is the point of a clear and present danger report if you're not going to exercise your ability to deny that clear and present danger of FOID card? Okay, what's the point of the FOID card? What's the point of the clear and present danger reports? So people are suing over this because people say, these families, people are saying, hey, you should have never had a FOID card. And all this week we've been talking about the case here in Bloomington where there was this triple homicide suicide with Christopher Simmons. His FOID card was revoked, but he used a gun that he legally obtained in 2021. After 2021, I think in 2022 is when his FOID card was revoked. Nobody attempted to get those weapons from him. Okay, his legal weapons after his FOID card was revoked. What the hell is the point of revoking somebody's FOID card if you're not going to go get the guns? Okay. So like I said, I don't even like the FOID card. I don't like any of this gun control stuff, and clearly it doesn't work. Okay, so Cavelli, the Lake County Chief Deputy guy, Cavelli, he told media then in 2022 that the local police sent the ISP, they sent it to the Illinois State Police that he was a clear and present danger, a report. And this is what plaintiffs in the lawsuit against the ISP are saying. They're saying that should have prevented the ISP from giving Cremo a FOID card. He was only he wasn't 21. He was under the age of 21. He was a clear and present danger. He needed his parent. I just don't understand, because there's like 86-year-olds. I know 86-year-old men who had their FOID card revoked because they forgot to renew their FOID card, okay? And they had it revoked, or some silly nonsense had happened and they wound up getting their FOID card revoked for a silly reason. I know people like that. And really what these laws, the FOID card processes, really what this does, it emboldens criminals. Criminals are never held accountable under the FOID processes. They're never held accountable. And really, this is just harmful for law-abiding citizens and takes their rights away. So Senator John Curran, he said in 2022 that, the ISP had always had access to these clear and present danger reports. And despite that, they still gave him a FOID card. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that we should be focusing on passing more gun control laws. We should really just focus on, hey, can we get the ISP? Can we get our current laws to be enforced? In the case of the Bloomington homicide-suicide, 3 homicide, triple homicide, including a 13-year-old boy, District 87, just so tragic. Can we get... and apparently he was on probation. I don't know if he had a probation officer or parole agent of some kind, but those individuals don't even need a court order to go and obtain the guns in his possession. Now, I know I'm arguing apples, but really I want to argue oranges. The fact that you are asking local law enforcement or you're asking police to go in and try to seize weapons from a potentially dangerous individual, not possible. Okay. They're going to hide the gun. He could bury the gun. It doesn't even, like, conducting these seizures and gun confiscations aren't even really possible. Now, making sure clear and present danger reports, I feel like that if we are to control who gets guns and who doesn't, if we say, hey, this guy is a clear and present danger ISP, we probably shouldn't award him a FOID card. If we can't get that, I mean, we're lost as a state. I just don't get it. There's states that don't have you'd be better off not having the FOID card. Okay, because now you're open to a lawsuit because you were in possession of this clear and present danger report and you gave him a FOID card anyway. It's just wild to me. So, all right, folks, that's going to do it for us today. Bye-bye. I love you so much. Be sure to find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Subscribe to the channel always. Back again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. See you later.